Right, so part 2, chapter 18, The Clinton Crime Family. Sounds like a Mario Puzo novel. Well, I don't think he could have written, honestly, without a smirk, about a family as corrupt as the Clintons. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Who are the Clintons? Well, it helps to understand where they came from, a little bit about their background and how they got together, what had to be in place for some of the things for them to get away with it. Bill Clinton was born in Hope, Arkansas. He was one of the poorest presidents, probably the second poorest next to Ronald Reagan at the time of his birth. But he was a very smart kid and got into Yale and was a Rhodes Scholar in Oxford. Okay, so we're dealing with a smart guy. But he was also known as a charismatic womanizer from a very young age. I don't mean like when he was 5. I mean, when he got to be of age. Everyone knew he liked the girls, and girls liked him. He was a chick magnet. There's no getting around it. If you want to call those good things, okay, kudos Bill Clinton. You had it going on. But the libido was a problem, and it would get worse. He had sexual appetites. I won't say they were perverse. I have no idea. But he couldn't control them. And he was never treated for it. So, pity the fool, if you must. Hillary Clinton, on the other side of the coin here, was born of parents in the Chicago, Illinois area. Her parents were Republicans, probably moderates, and she grew up as a moderate Republican herself. In fact, she was a Goldwater girl. She was also, as many don't remember, if they ever did know, the president of the Young Republicans Club in Wellesley College. But during her time at Wellesley is when she met Saul Alinsky, and he changed her life forever. She wrote a thesis in her master's thesis on him, praising him and all that. She met him, and she kept corresponding with him until he died in 1971. They had I guess it would be a 3, maybe 4-year relationship as colleagues, friends, what have you. She idolized the guy, as we talked about before. He no bueno. So, she goes to Yale, and that's where she and Bill meet. 1971. They were married in 1975, but between that time, she actually moved to Arkansas with him to teach at Arkansas University at Lafayette. Northwestern Arkansas. So she was already willing to go back to the state where hillbillies live. I mean, literally, the Ozarks. That's the hillbillies. In fact, northern Arkansas is where the Ozark Mountains are. She went to go live with hillbillies and billies before they were married. I mean, I get that. I mean, people have a relationship, but she was all in, taken like all the others. Now, my question, of course, and a lot of people's questions are, when did she start to realize who she was with? Before she was married? After? When did she start to realize that Bill Clinton was a womanizer? When did she start to realize that he had potential to go places? Simultaneously? Don't know. Of course, she had her own ideas of what she wanted to do. And successes that she wanted to achieve. But there's a certain belief among right-wingers that there had to be, liberals have a big problem with this. because they can't wrap their head around things because they really just try to ignore it. Because if they get into this, they look like idiots. More idiots. And among right-wingers, we have a belief, some of us, not all of us, that there had to be an understanding between Bill and Hillary Clinton, probably early on in their relationship. Mid to late 70s, I would surmise this would have happened. Because nothing else explains this marriage, this relationship, this coupling. Nothing else explains it. Now, Bill Clinton's had hundreds, literally hundreds of mistresses. He has a certain type of woman he likes. Hillary is not that type. Usually they are fairly intelligent. They are fairly pretty. For the most part, they are either his age or younger. He doesn't like older women, I don't think. But a lot of them younger. And he has had these mistresses going back as far as you can imagine. He had dates and girlfriends, affairs, before he was married. And when we get into some of the stuff going on, the history of these two, you'll see the very first item is an affair of Bill Clinton's that predates, by far, his marriage. So why would he marry her? And more importantly, why would he stay married to her? Then you have, of course, the other question. The other question is, why would she stay married to him? Like I mentioned, there's a point at which she had to know he was a womanizer. She had to find out that he was like this. And she had to make a decision. What was the decision Hillary had to make? Do I ride the coattails of a guy who I can make successful and help make successful in Arkansas and beyond in exchange for dealing with all his crap? Because nothing else explains why a so-called feminist would stick around and hang with this guy. As I will show, she knew he was a womanizer going way, way back. Now this so-called feminist, who I believe is a total fraud on that account, by the way, this so-called feminist says all women who are raped or had sexual abuse should be believed. This so-called feminist looked the other way when her own husband was accused of those very things. So she's a fraud. Now, why would you hang out with a guy? Now, look, I know there's a lot of mental problems with women who stick with husbands because of, they have, they think it's their fault, or they think they can make it work, and it's just a little more of this or a little more of that, or they have some emotional attachment that they can't break, or they're the carrot and the stick thing, oh, I love you, really mean it, love you, mean it, and then they go off and do something bad, and then they make up for it. And look, okay, so which is it? Hillary purposely dealt with this stuff in order to ride his coattails, or she was an emotional wreck and needed counseling. Either way, the woman is unfit. She's either a fraud and a liar, or she's emotionally unstable, who never dealt with these things psychologically. You see a pattern here? He never dealt with his need for gratification, sexual gratification, psychologically speaking. And she never dealt with her sticking with a guy who's hosing her all the time, who's screwing her all the time, who's, figuratively, not literally, who's hurting her emotionally. So they're both, emotional, wrecks, or He is and she's not, and this is all deliberate. I'll let you decide which is worse. But there are problems right at the foundation of this relationship. Again, this is all dime store psychology, but it's just logic. This is common sense, folks. She can't have it both ways. You know? She can't say I'm emotionally stable and I knew nothing about all this stuff at the same time. Can't do it. You either knew or you're emotionally unstable. There's no third option. I believe they had an understanding. I believe Hillary said, look, I believe you have potential and you can go somewhere in this life and we can make something of ourselves using your charisma, your brain, and my help. I can help you. I can help you get to be things and do things and meet people and I can cover your tracks. But you got to limit this sexual stuff. You got to keep it from getting into the public. If I know about it, they know about it. So don't let me know about it and everything might be good. But if I have to come out and cover your butt, you make my job much harder and it's harder for me to move you up the chain of success. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But something to that effect had to have happened between the two of them. Otherwise, she would have been gone in a second and he would have moved on to something he likes. Why bog yourself down with a marriage? Well, okay, there is one reason. Marry someone you don't really like, not really attracted to, at least not enough to become monogamous. Not even close to monogamous. What's the exact opposite of monogamous? Polybigamist, whatever. In order to move up the ladder of success. They used each other. It wasn't just one way. I'm on your coattails, Bill. Go. Mush, mush. I'm right behind you. No, they helped each other. The understanding was bicameral. Now, with that groundwork, with that understanding who these people are, you have to also understand that when they got into politics and when they got into the groups, the cliques, the organizations of people in, at first, Arkansas politics, they started to meet people who were rich and powerful and successful. And they were not. Yet. And one of the things that drives the Clintons more than maybe anything else is greed. They are, by far, possibly the most greedy politicians on the planet. They broke every amendment or every commandment there is, but one of them that they broke early on was thou shalt not covet. They coveted the lifestyles of their friends that they had just met in the groups and circles of Arkansas politics and outside, the connected groups to politics, the lawyers and the donors and the backers and the what have you. They were moved and mixed in amongst rich people, powerful people, influential people, and they said, we want that for ourselves. We want to be that. Rich, powerful, influential. How do we do that? Who can help us do that? How do we help each other achieve that? That was the goal. They were envious of others' wealth, power, and influence, and they sought to be those things themselves. So now you have their foundation, and now you have their motivation. This is not debatable because everything works in reverse. You can reverse engineer what they are, how they got there, to what they must have thought when they started it out. Just go back in time. And so we will. Let's go back in time. Let us understand how the Clinton crime family started out. We know the players. We know the reasons. We know the what drove them and what got them started and what's how what understanding they must have had. So what did it all lead to? Well, what it all led to is a laundry list of miscreant behavior. Any one, I think without fail, any one of these things, if either Clinton, Hillary, or Bill were actually indicted for, and most especially if they were ever convicted for any one of these things, they would have never gotten powerful, rich, or influential. At least if it happened early enough. But they got away with all of it, with minor exceptions. But in the big picture, they basically walked scot-free. What other group, what other person, what other American, what other citizen could do the things that they did and be this completely exonerated for? You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. There's a second set of rules out there, folks. There's one for everybody, and there's one for the Clintons. And the Clintons have benefited from this double standard with the help of the media, help of the legal profession, which they also were part of as lawyers by trade, and half of the American people who fell under the Bill Clinton spell and, like the media, became lemmings, sheeple, who could not break from backing the Clintons no matter what they did. It's an amazing power they actually had or learned over people. Were they sympathetic to the liberals? That's why they got away with it? That's why they were they so influential in the things they wanted to achieve, and that they felt your pain, and so it didn't matter what the guy could go out on this Pennsylvania Avenue and shoot someone in the head and walk back and says, I did it for you. I don't know what it is, but the Clintons had it, the wool pulled over the eyes of half the American people, and still do in many cases. So in part 3, we're going to start down the list. Now, this is going to take a while. This is not a short video, I understand. We'll get it not too much depth for each, but we'll talk a little bit about each corruption and each malfeasance as it goes. And it'll be in chronological order, so it's not in any particular order, nor is it just all of Bill's and then all of his. It's all mixed together, perfect chronological order. And these are mostly just the things that one can consider corruption or crime. Okay? So in part 3, we'll get started with the laundry list. See you then.